So for a while, I was like, maybe I'm bi. I don't know. And it wasn't until I think I went on a date with the guy. We had gotten mussels, the shellfish. And I was looking at the mussel and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm so much more attracted to this
Oh no.
shellfish.
Welcome to Sleeping Around, where we offer a peek behind the curtain of modern sex and relationship therapy and research, bringing you insights and conversations otherwise reserved for the therapy room. I'm your host, Alayna Joy, a Master's of Counseling Psychology student, content creator, and lifelong sex and relationship nerd. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sleeping Around. Today's episode is not just any episode. This week, we are talking with the one and only Katy O'Brian. Not only is she a queer icon, but for horror movie buffs like myself, her performance in A24's Love Lies Bleeding will go down in history as one of the best, most wild ride of a horror movie out there. She's co-starred in Twisters, The Mandalorian, Ant-Man and the Wasp. She's been in Westworld, Z Nation. This summer, she's going to be in Mission Impossible. And today, she's here to discuss identity and self-discovery. We talk about her coming out journey, how she met her wife, what it's like to play visibly queer characters, and queer representation in media as a whole. We talk about long-distance relationships and finding self-expression that feels authentic. This was a wonderful and fun conversation, especially if you have access to the Patreon extended cut, because we talk about ghost stories and psychics. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. Without further ado, Katy O'Brian. And a quick thank you to the sponsor of this episode, Dossier, but more on that in a bit. I kind of can't believe that I'm talking to you right now a little bit because I loved the movie Love Lies Bleeding, but also the complexity of Jackie and the complexity of the storyline, not just between her and Lou. The queerness of their relationship wasn't the conflict, wasn't the source of the drama in the movie, was really different.
Yeah, that was refreshing.
So that was refreshing is a great word for it.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about you? How did you get here?
How did I get here? Yeah, I don't know. I'm from Indiana, and I always kind of wanted to get out, and I always wanted to act. I like art was my thing. I've always done music. I was a drummer for like 13 years, and
Oh, no way.
yeah, I played marimba, like any percussion I could literally get my hands on. And I did plays when I was young, and I loved it. I just loved like any kind of outlet that I got to perform or to get lost in a piece of art was kind of a big joy for me. But it never seemed like a realistic career. You know, a lot of the people that I knew that were
Mm,
actors in Indiana had like other full-time jobs, and they would, it just wasn't sustainable. I never understood Hollywood. I still don't necessarily, but I didn't understand how you break in, how you are seen by anybody. You know, I think early on I might have like when the Babadook came out, I wrote a letter to the director. I'm sure she never saw, but it was one of those things where I didn't realize that like this isn't going to the director, and she's probably never going to read it.
what did the letter say?
I'm also a big fan of horror, and it was the first horror film that I'd seen in a long time that actually made me like, sit and think about it. And it wasn't just jump scares, it was, there
Yeah.
was like this deep psychological and physical like discomfort that I felt watching that. This like distrust between a mom and her son. It was just so interesting to me. I wanted to write about how cool and complex I thought the film was, and how it kind of inspired me. And yeah, never obviously never heard back because I'm sure never
That was
got.
going to be my next question.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure she's like from Australia or something. So, it was
Right?
it was never gonna make it. When I went to school, I changed my major like a million times, but I tested right away to where I had minimal psychology credits to get a psych degree. I only needed to take like a few German classes to get a German degree. And then the other things I just played around with, and it got to the point where I was like, okay, maybe I'll be a doctor. And I studied neuroscience for a while, and I needed like a whole year of physics to get a neuroscience degree and do a pre-med kind of thing. And I just couldn't, I'm like, well, if physics is the barrier between me and being a doctor, I probably have no business being a doctor. Like I can't do it.
Okay. Right.
My brain doesn't think that way. So I was a little bit lost of like, do I do psychology or, do I go for a PhD? Do I really struggle with physics and go for an MD? Like, what do I do? I had this, what I can only assume would be a panic attack one day where I was like, I don't like what I'm doing and I need to write down the things that will make me happy. And one of those was like, I just wanted to feel like powerful, I guess, in a very physical way. And then I wanted to reconnect to acting, which had always made me happy. So I started to take classes. I started to do local little, short films and whatever I could get into to try to build like an acting reel and a resume and anything to get an agent. And then wound up very luckily being recommended by my acting teacher to his agent. And so I always say that like bodybuilding and acting kind of came hand in hand for me, which is really interesting because Love Lies Bleeding was one of those, like they were struggling to find someone who was a bodybuilder and an actor. And it was like, I was the only person I knew of that fit both those categories, which was kind of gave me the arrogance to walk in there and be like, this is my part.
Is that what it felt like? This is my part when you walked in? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I saw the casting call, which was like, they couldn't find the person. So they put it out on the internet and,
Oh, yeah.
and I made like a PowerPoint of like why this was the part for me, but it was a queer female bodybuilder going to Vegas for her dreams or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a queer female bodybuilder who went to Los Angeles to follow her dreams, found love along the way, whatever. I'm like, that seems like me.
You're like, sort of. Like,
Yeah.
Only exactly.
And the audition sides, like when I'm reading them, the words are just like just falling out of my mouth, like something almost that I'd said before. It just felt so right. And then after my callback, I got the script.
What you named, kind of going through, starting with figuring out a degree and wanting to leave the Midwest and not really fitting in, but then now, kind of feeling more like you've found your place in a way. It all sounds like exactly what I kind of want to talk about today, which is the idea of identity and finding identity, especially with your experience playing such a visibly queer role. I'm curious about the impact that that's had both on you professionally and personally. I know that a lot of people listening, they're either in the process of figuring out their own identity or they, have some grasp of it, but are trying to figure out how to embody that comfortably. Or how do I step into my identity? How do I own it? So can you tell me a little bit about what that process has been like for you?
I feel like if you're not reflecting on yourself and asking yourself questions, that's when you kind of maybe start to feel stagnant and feel unhappy and maybe confused or whatever. Everyone kind of probably manifests it differently. And for me, it was when I was in Indiana, I just didn't know where I really felt like I belonged. Like I had great friends. And, at one point I had a lot of friends that were in the arts. And then, after graduating high school, essentially, I had more friends that were maybe in academics. And then it was my law enforcement, it was bodybuilding and fitness kind of friends. And I kind of felt like, dabbling in each of those, I could learn to relate to people for sure. But it was just kind of like, I never felt all in 100% anywhere. And I think that a lot of people feel that way. And I think that the big thing that I've realized is it's just like, it's okay to not completely 100% feel like you have to be in one group or bubble. And I think that's where like, I always felt a little strange and lost. And I think that's where a lot of people also just feel discomfort is feeling different. And that's just realizing that's okay is like a big step. And then I also think, age is so helpful too. Like now I'm just so so much less insecure about things that might have devastated me when I was younger. Like I was at physical therapy the other day and I was in a massage table thing and I was like about to drool on the floor and I just thought it'd be so, like that would have.
I did not think that's where you
Where's
were
this going
with this story.
I was like about to fall out of my mouth. And I was just,
Okay.
I told the guy, I'm like, hey man, I might drool, just so you know. And he's like, you wouldn't be the first. And I'm like, I bet I wouldn't. And I was like, this in my mind, I was like, that would have been like, I would have had to stop the session, like, what,
Yeah,
something before.
right.
But now I'm just like, I'm just gonna drool a little bit, you know?
What a neat kind of message of like, before that would have been a mortifying experience, or I would have tried to change or, not drool.
Yeah,
But then in saying, hey, I think I might drool, then
yeah,
you find out, oh, that's actually not abnormal at all. Lots of
yeah.
people drool.
A lot of people drool. And there's so many things that have been humbling too as I've gotten older. It just doesn't bother me as much anymore because there's so many other things that are more important. And one of the main things is my own personal happiness. And one thing that helps me, and I know that a lot of people maybe can't because of their jobs or whatever, but like I just really take social media with like the smallest grain of sand that I possibly can because I people will just drop on and I don't even know if they're real people and
Mm-hmm.
say some of the meanest stuff that you've ever heard and you're just like they are so uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
with someone that they will never meet probably in their lives, maybe never even see, that they have to go onto their profile and make a rude or disgusting comment. And that's just like
Mm-hmm.
something also that I had to realize is that somebody's like sadness and discomfort in themselves. Because any time that I've ever come at someone or something with a place of negativity, it was always some kind of internal thing. And I've always had to check in with that. You know, it's like, uh, for instance, if I'm not taking a role or I don't want to take a role, one of my initial like jerk reactions is this is stupid. I don't want to do it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask myself, why is it stupid? And sometimes the answer is because I'm actually afraid to do this part. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like putting up a defense for myself. And then that's when I kind of know I have to do it. Is like if I can't find any real reason that it sucks, it's probably me.
I love the message of it's okay to try different things and not feel 100% about any of them because like what you said is you're getting experience kind of connecting to other people, but you're also learning things about yourself, whether
Mhm.
you end up deciding this is for me or not. And then the next step of saying I actually don't have to fit in just one box.
Yeah.
I can be complicated. I can be multifaceted.
Yeah.
But before we get to the rest of the interview, I want to take a second to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, Dossier. You guys know I love Dossier. I partnered with them all of last year. They are the perfume house of the next generation. They make luxury designer brand perfume impressions. They make dupes, but they're not dupes like a cheaper, lower quality version of the designer brands. These are quality scents made in France, cruelty-free, for a fraction of the price. You get the same quality, you get the same scents. Like their impressions are spot on. It's actually wild, but without the incredibly high market or like designer name brand tax. This time around, I stocked up on a couple of favorites, of course. Fruity Almond is one of my favorite Dossier scents. This is inspired by Carolina Herrera's Good Girl perfume. And as you guys know, I like to smell them and then tell you what kind of gay I think they represent. Fruity Almond is classy, okay? Fruity Almond is the one saying good girl. You know what I mean? She's not the good girl herself. These scents go for $49, whereas some of these designer scents are like $300. The Good Girl perfume, for example, is $145, and this one is $49. Plus, you can bundle them together and save. Another one of my favorites, Woody Sage. This is an impression of Joe Malone's Wood Sage and Sea Salt. Oh my god. Which retails for like $220. This lesbian is vacationing at the seaside, and she's the best smelling one on the beach. And then I got a couple new ones to try. This is Floral Lavender. Oh, okay, this one's the good girl. Fruity Almond is calling Floral Lavender good girl. And then I had to get Floral Violet to try it because it's an impression of Marc Jacobs Daisy, and I used to love that perfume, but it's $125 for one bottle. And I repeat, this is $49, and it's even less if you bundle. Oh my God, it smells just like it. Oh my God, this is like bringing me back to high school. That's another thing with these. I don't know how they do it, but they don't give me a headache. Like a lot of perfumes, I would have a headache already if I was smelling them like this. But these are quality. They're made with quality ingredients, and their ingredients are sourced from the world's perfume capital, Grasse, France. I just love Dossier. I think what they're doing is really cool, and they make truly good products. So I'm always excited to partner with them. Check out the link in my description. Go grab yourself some scents, get a bundle. For the cost of some of these luxury brands, you could literally get 6 Dossier perfumes. It's amazing. How have you found being in the spotlight kind of in this new way? Maybe it's not new for you, but in terms of playing a character who is so visibly queer, such an explicitly queer role, how has that impacted you?
I do a lot of these conventions for Star Wars and Marvel stuff, and I got a lot of questions from other characters that I played of like, oh, what's it like to play, a visibly queer character on screen? And I was like, which one? What are you talking about? Because for so long, I feel like I haven't been allowed to play a queer character, or like it's queer coded because I don't know, it's me.
Air quotes.
Yeah,
For the
yeah.
listener.
Because I have short hair and like a square jaw, and so like, okay, that character's gay. Because none of my characters before ever did anything. But it's funny that that people just assumed that they were gay, and I was like, no, it's actually kind of interesting to me that no one will cast me as a gay character. Like I had auditioned for gay characters for so long, and anytime I saw who wound up being cast, it was always like someone was very, very feminine, or that was straight, oftentimes. So it was interesting to me. The fact that for Love Lies Bleeding, they were really, really trying for authentic casting, I found really beneficial, obviously, because I actually got to play a queer character, but it allowed me to actually, I think, lend, a little bit of my personal experience and a little bit of my truth to that character that someone that hadn't had any of those experiences might not have fully been able to express. I think there is a different way of walking around, especially if you're from the Midwest and you're gay and you know it, and like you feel like you make other people uncomfortable even if they never say it outright. There's always this like barrier that I don't think someone would maybe think about necessarily if they hadn't experienced that. So yeah, that was the first time that I actually got to play someone that was openly queer. And it was really fun. And working with Kristen, I didn't feel disgusting, because I had worked with an actress before that, I had to do a kissing scene, and she said she was comfortable with it, and it turned out she was very uncomfortable with it. And it made me feel gross. Yeah, it made me feel so gross because I don't want to make someone uncomfortable. And I was finally like, look, what's the safest thing for us to do here to get the scene done without me even touching you? Like, I wouldn't even air kiss you, It was nice to also be playing across someone that is also a person in the queer community, and it was also like really excited about the project and was really collaborative with it as well. So it was just so helpful.
You're describing typecasting, but in the opposite way that I would assume. I feel like we hear a lot of conversations around not casting queer people in queer roles, and you're saying that people almost hesitated to cast you in queer roles and then would choose rather someone hyper feminine or like a straight person. And then it can be scary, it can be uncomfortable to even like walk down the street, holding your partner's hand or being visibly queer in some way. And so you doing that in such a public sphere is really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, like if you went to see that movie and you're mad about it being gay, like, I'm sorry you picked the wrong movie, like,
yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you. If you're mad about the movie because you didn't expect the ending, I totally get that.
Wild ride.
Yeah, it was super wild. If you went in, and a lot of people were uncomfortable with the violence and everything, and that's super fair. It's rated R. People are going to have opinions. People are going to be mad about stuff. I can't be bothered with it. I don't know. My parents saw it. That was weird. I told
Oh,
them that
yeah.
they could probably skip this one out. Um, my dad had no comment, and to for full fairness, this is not a movie that he would go see if I wasn't in it. The fact that he probably, I assume, stayed awake. And my mom was like, "Good job, sweetie." My great aunt, who's 96 years old, saw it
Mm-hmm.
and loved it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some people that have enjoyed it that very much surprised me. I didn't know who the movie was for, except for like me and Kristen, and Rose was like, "Yeah, this checks all my boxes."
Are you comfortable talking about like your coming out story, your kind of discovering your own queer identity?
Yeah, it was like a longer journey for me, and not as long as some people that I've spoken to. But yeah, I always was just so focused on other things. Like dating didn't interest me for a very long time. And even if it
Mm-hmm.
did, it was kind of more on the superficial level of like just being able to say, "Oh, look, I have a boyfriend" or something. So it wasn't until, I did always feel this weird discomfort though. Like whenever I was in, a locker room or something and I was an athlete, I was always worried that people were uncomfortable that I was there and I didn't know why. I just was like, they
Mm-hmm.
probably think I'm checking them out. And I wasn't, to be
Mm-hmm.
clear. And I still to this day am not.
The idea of representation keeps coming to mind for me because what we saw when, we were younger in movies, any kind of lesbian queer woman representation was the creepy gym teacher. It was always like a predatory kind of character. And so it's not surprising that we internalize that and then you're in a locker room going, "Oh, everybody probably thinks that I'm doing something wrong. I'm making people uncomfortable." It's like,
Mm,
where did that come from? Well, it was spoon-fed to us, and that was the only queer
yeah.
representation we had.
I guess. I mean, if I even saw it, and that's another thing, to step back into, I was talking about never feeling like even my queer identity was represented on screen until maybe more recently. I was specifically talking about a more androgynous or butch representation. And someone was like, "Well, I feel like there's like, I never see feminine representation." But I was like, "Okay, well, like original L word, that's all I had really growing up." And I didn't really feel like anybody there checked a lot of my boxes. And then I asked for some examples of like butch representation on the screen, and this person couldn't give me any, but was still mad about it. They're still like, "No, there's just still too many." And I'm like, "Okay, but
Yep.
who though?" And oftentimes when I got a script for someone that was butch, and I don't necessarily consider myself butch, even though like apparently a lot of people do, and that's fine. But yeah, a lot of the characters that I would get were like caricatures. They weren't like real people. They were some kind of stereotypical like, yeah, aggressive or, strange person. And so that was always, yeah, a little unsettling and really strange to me. I feel like that was kind of the first maybe thing that should have clued me in. And there were some girls in high school that had like I did like some theater and stuff like that, and they created a fan club for me, and I thought it was flattering. They seemed very flirty, but I never really read into it too much.
You're like, "Wow, they're just really good friends. This is such good friendship."
Yeah, I'm like, well, and if they are, into me in some way, I'm like, I am worried about getting straight A's.
Yes. Yeah.
So then I got to college, and that was kind of the first time where I saw someone that was like androgynous. Like this, my friend's dance partner, she was one of the most beautiful women I'd ever seen at that point in life. And I felt things that I hadn't necessarily felt before. In the back of my mind, I was like, but I think men are pretty, And so I thought that that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same, maybe. And I dated a few guys, and I just never really got or understood why people would lose their shit over relationships. I was like, yeah, these are like great friends.
Yeah. Remember always thinking, like, I didn't get why people were I thought everyone was so dramatic.
Yeah,
Like, I was like, why are you all so, like, okay, so he kissed someone else. Like, let's all take a deep breath.
yeah, yeah,
Like, I was like, not. I thought everybody was so worked up over these things that, like, didn't matter. And then I discovered women. And I was like,
there we go.
oh, this is
Yeah.
what they've all been talking about.
I did wind up, I was like, okay, well, I do have some kind of draw
Mm-hmm.
towards women that I feel like I should explore.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a while, I was like, maybe I'm bi. I don't know. And it wasn't until I think I went on a date with the guy. We had gotten mussels, the shellfish. And I was looking at the mussel and I'm like, I'm so much more attracted to this
Oh no.
shellfish than I am to this lovely person beside me. One of my friends was crashing at my house at the time, and I just like after the date, she's like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "I'm pretty sure I'm just gay." And she's like, "Yeah."
It was the muscles.
Yeah, it was the muscles. My life and muscles. That'll be my autobiography. Ever since then, I was like, all right, we'll date women, and that was where I started to realize, oh, this is why people go nuts in relationships. So,
Uh-huh.
I even thought in my head I was just gonna adopt a kid someday in my 30s or something and like raise them on my own. I was just like totally happy being alone. I couldn't imagine the person that I'd want to spend the rest of my life with. And then just out of nowhere, the weirdest person in the world literally fell into my lap, I think.
Really?
And yeah, she was a director for a project I was doing. And months later, I asked her to hang out with a group of friends, thinking friends, and then quickly realized that she thought it was a date. And at one point, yeah, she like fell into my lap. And then I asked if I was like, would it be weird if I kissed you right now? And she was like, it'd be weird if you didn't. And then we've been together ever since.
That's the Thank you for telling me that. That's
The gayest thing in the
It's the gayest, yes. I was trying not to say it, okay? I was trying not to say it. It's the gayest thing I've ever heard. You mentioned feeling this sort of pull toward women that you hadn't totally identified, but you knew it was something different than the way that you had been feeling about men. I'm thinking about the listener who's at home going, I think I might be gay. I think I might be queer, but I don't know. How do you know? What was your experience? How do you know for the listener at home who's wondering?
I mean, for me, it was just as simple as like a first kiss, like the first kiss, the real kiss that I had with this lady that I went out with. It wasn't even a good kiss, but I felt like too much information, I guess, far more aroused than I had ever
The show's
felt.
called Sleeping Around.
There you go.
It's not too much information.
Perfect. And there was that moment of, oh, okay. And I'm very much like a physical touch person. I think maybe that's where it just like I had to break that barrier down for myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it in terms of like a love language kind of perspective. That might be an interesting self-reflection piece of like, what are your love languages generally? And now imagine applying those love languages with one gender, imagine applying those love languages with another gender, and like see how that feels.
Yeah, there was never a moment where I was like, I want to see that guy naked. Just like in my whole life. And even today, it's just never crossed my mind.
You're like, he's pretty.
Yes, I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. I want to see, like, what's your workout routine? Like, how did you have perfect abs. I want to know more about that. It's like, that should have been a clue for sure.
You mentioned kind of the androgyny piece and the having short hair, but not necessarily identifying with the term butch. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel about, conceptualize, embody kind of masculinity versus femininity within yourself, in your identity, your presentation?
Yeah, I feel like some days it's more fluid than others. Like there is kind of a thing when I'm maybe going on a red carpet or something. I'm like, I want hair slicked back. I want, tie. I want to look like really masculine. I don't know why. It's just something that today that's how I feel comfortable. Or, the other day we went out and I was like, I'm going to wear a skirt and I'm going to put some makeup on. And I wore heels, for the first time in a while. And I don't really feel the need to like hold myself to any particular, I guess, identity that way.
How did you find that was kind of where you wanted to be? And then how did you find comfort with that?
I don't know. I feel like I've always been that way. And I feel like, another thing was I had always been supported that way too. And,
okay.
I was probably a tom. I use air quotes a lot. That's so
Yeah,
lame, isn't
and
it?
I have to say air quotes. Listener, it's air quotes.
Yeah, and then she did air
Uh-huh.
quotes again. Growing up, I was a tomboy, and I did
Hmm.
sports. I wore boys' clothes sometimes. I also did pageants from time to time. My mom signed me up for some pageants, and I didn't take them like seriously in a, I'm gonna give you a pageant answer for this. I played drum set for my talent. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't, I just wasn't going to change who I was to be in this thing. But it was fun to wear the dress and to put makeup on and pull my hair, straighten my hair and whatever. And I think that's one thing that's like so fun about acting too, is that you get to kind of transform and try new things out and see, oh, this is something that I never thought I would be comfortable doing or being or dressing or whatever. And you dabble in it and you get to throw away the things that don't work for you and keep the things that do. That's martial arts too. I mean, I feel like that's like a fun little mantra all in all. But yeah, I think part of it was just no one made fun of me, I guess, to my face for
Hmm.
the way that I was dressing or expressing myself. I was just like, I was just doing me.
There are so many people who don't feel that comfort or the idea of presenting one way where people might assume you're in one box and then changing it up the next day. That idea is really scary and big. The thought of somebody seeing you in a different way and then judging you or having a poor response is really overwhelming.
If somebody is upset with me or doesn't like
Hmm.
me for one reason or another, that just it says more about them than it does about me. I do value and love the freedom to be able to dress the way that I do or to
Hmm.
express myself the way that I do. And it's definitely a privilege that I have. And I feel even more so privileged now that I'm in like a place like Los Angeles. Things like queerness and fashion and whatever. I feel like you can find your own place and kind of just be here, which is nice. Whereas in Indiana, I feel like I have had somebody send security in the bathroom after me in Indiana. And at the end of the day, I'm like, what do you want? You want me to like drop my pants? Like, what do you want to do? Like the security guard, like I could tell was embarrassed when they walked in. It's nice to be in a place that I can walk around a lot more comfortably for sure. But um, other than that, I do understand and I respect and appreciate that there are places where it's just genuinely not safe to do so. And in those instances, it's kind of like, you have to do what is best for you, and your health and your sanity and your livelihood. And I can't make those decisions for you. And I'm not gonna, I always feel like it's so weird when people like judge people for not coming out or judge people for,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you were dating women and now you're dating a guy, so you're a traitor or something. It's just not their place to do that. When I came out, I think I did what a lot of people did, and it was like, I'm a lesbian, and like,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
like I will be only, whatever. And
Yes.
that can be kind of really exclusionary in a weird, in a way that you weren't necessarily thinking of, and it can trap you too. What if, one day you're just like, oh, suddenly this person who's in a body that I'm not used to finding attractive, I'm attracted to, then I feel like you should allow yourself to explore that. Like you shouldn't hate yourself for changing.
Yeah, and that's so powerful. Like, we
Yeah.
are so much more complex than these labels often allow. Switching gears a little bit, do you have any tips for maintaining a long term relationship or an important relationship when you're working a lot or traveling a lot?
It has come to my attention that I had my wedding ring on earlier, and now I don't know
Oh no.
where it is.
Hmm.
But yeah, again, I'm a space cadet. I mean, part of it was it's super helpful that I found someone who is very familiar with this business. So my wife was a writer and she works in the production side of things and understands I'm going to be gone a lot. Or, hey, I have
Mm-hmm.
a kissing scene with another woman or a man or, whoever,
Mm-hmm.
or a really like a raunchy, intimate sex. Um, and, and it's just, it was really important to me because my career is so important to me that I'm able to explore these options. And Kylie is really understanding. And You miss each other. But then also I know that when I go off to do my job, I'm not free of responsibility, but she's got the animals to take care of here, the house to take care of, like
Oh,
anything
yeah.
in, there's so many other little things that are little stressors that, suddenly is on her plate as opposed to a shared plate that I have to take into consideration as well. So yeah, it's just kind of keeping each other in mind, but then also being able to express your needs. There are times where it's like, I just really have to focus on work. There are other times where it's like, I need to pivot and focus on my family, and it's good to know when those boundaries are. And Kylie's good at calling me out when I am too focused on work. She's good at letting me know when she does need a little extra help. So it's communication and understanding and trust is another big thing. Yeah.
Communication, trust, naming your needs openly. How do you stay close? How do you stay connected when you are apart?
We try to make time to talk on the phone, FaceTime whenever possible. And then we try to set aside little date nights, and we haven't been fully successful on this yet, but one of my friends has done this, and we love the idea. You try to have the same meal or same type of meal, watch the same movie at the same time, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Go on a walk together, just little thing, anything that you can do to spend some kind of quality time. And then just sharing pictures and I want to know what the animals are up to when I'm gone. And then, yeah, whenever I can, even if it's at a bit of an expense, I try to fly back home or have her come out.
It really is those little things that add up to create the trust or the communication or
yeah
the relationship as a whole. Before we end the conversation and move over into Patreon, where can people find you? What are you working on right now?
So social media, which as we've established, I'm on all the time. I'm really good at is at the Katy O on Instagram and Twitter, now known as X. And I guess I still have a Facebook, but I never go on it.
A Facebook?
I know.
I'm sorry to
I know.
I've never once in all of my filming, I have never once had somebody promote their Facebook page.
You can find me on Facebook at the KDO. The only time I ever post on that is when I forget or somehow my Instagram is connected to it and will randomly, it'll randomly post for me. And then now I have a TikTok because I worked with some people that were much younger than I am, and they encouraged me to try it. And I haven't posted in several weeks because I don't care.
I can feel hordes of people running over right now to follow you on TikTok.
I just don't get it. But yeah, please follow me. I will be in the final chapter of Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 8. I'm very excited.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah. And then I had the honor of doing a queer zombie comedy that George Romero's daughter, Tina, wrote and directed. And all queer cast except for our one token straight dude. Gotta have the one. And it was just such a fun little project. So, and then I'll have a rom-com coming out. I'm about to start 2 other movies. So hopefully I know it's been a crazy year. It's been really fun. Hopefully I'll be able to announce what those are soon, actually.
It's almost like people should stay tuned on your social media accounts.
I'll post about them on my social media accounts. Especially
Which will be
Facebook.
Linked below. Especially that's actually the only place. So if you're not following Katy on Facebook, you're out of luck.
What are you doing?
And one more thank you to Dossier for partnering with me on this episode. Remember, you can go to dossier.co. It is linked in the description to check out their incredible and also affordable scents. Thank you, Dossier. Thanks for listening. You can also access all of our extended cut episodes with bonus content from every single guest over on Patreon at patreon.com/AlaynaJoy. That's patreon.com/ALAYNAJoy. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at sleepingaroundpod for updates, teasers, episode discussions, and more. This episode was produced by Alayna Joy and Danae Fender and edited by Corey Mosqueda. See you next time, back here on the couch.